Welcome, welcome, welcome to Educational Leadership SLLA Test Prep, the logistics and the mindset. So this session is all about just what is the test? How do I register for the test? What do I need to know for the test? It's all about the logistics and the mindset behind the test. So you're going to be able to ask any questions if you're joining us live. If you're watching it on the YouTube channel, just know that the resource that I give out is right underneath the video under details. So definitely go and get that resource. And it answers a lot of the questions about the logistics for the test. So I am Dr. Desiree Alexander. Hello, I am always the host of Educator Alexander webinars, and I'm also the presenter for today. I really love educational leadership and talking about the SLLA exam and just getting people prepared to start that journey. So these are all of the different ways that you can contact me. Honestly, if you can just get to my website, then you can get to me. So if you can get to educatoralexander.com, you have all this information on there. So what is next? So we have a bonus EA webinar today. So we're doing this one, and then we have from 1 to 2 Central, we have AI and Chat GPT, what educators need to know. So if you're like, what is this AI stuff? I keep hearing about this Bard and Chat GPT. I don't come and learn what you need to know about it, because it's not going away. So that is going to be later today in about 2 hours from 1 to 2 Central. And then we have a Minecrafting education series on Tuesdays in June. So June 6th, 13th, and 20th. And each session is going to be something different about Minecrafting education. And I'm guessing they're going to build on each other and things like that. So if you ever my kids are crazy for Minecraft, how can I actually use this in my classroom? I don't know about all this stuff. Come and learn about it. Because again, this has been around for a long time and kids are gaga for it. So now you can come and learn for it for free. So come and get, you can register for those on that link at alex.net/Minecraft, or you can get to everything that we're talking about at alex.net/events. Then we have affinity groups, creating a space for self-advocacy for Muslim and Arab female students. So just coming to learn, what is an affinity group? Again, those buzzwords that we keep hearing in education. And then how can we be supportive? How can we lead to self-advocacy for our Muslim and Arab female students as well? So learning both of those together will be amazing. Then we have Past SLLA, the live webinar. So I wrote a book about passing the SLLA exam. I also have an online class where you can enrolling at any time. You have access to it for a year, but I still have people that are like, I want a live class. I want to see you saying it. I want to ask questions. So if that's what you are looking for, we are having one through Zoom on Friday, June 16th from 8 to 4 p.m. You do get an hour lunch in that time, and it's $155. So you can again register for that on that website as well. You can register now and pay, before June 16th. Then we have School Leadership 101 by the amazing Dr. Amanda. So she's going to come and tell us hey, if you're thinking about moving into leadership, what are some things you need to know? Then, and that's June 17th. So all these are in June, y'all. All these are coming up. Then we have ISTE. So if you're going to ISTE, definitely join me. I have a lot more to add to this slide. We have 2 free book signings. We have other sessions. So a lot more to add to this slide. If you are part of my newsletter, you'll be getting the update of all that. And then we have Shift the Mood of Your Classroom by Becoming Trauma Informed. We have all suffered a collective trauma with everything that's happened in the last few years. So definitely come and learn about how we can maneuver that in our classroom. So definitely dealing with, negative behaviors and things like that, and how to just shift that mood in your classroom. So definitely come and learn about that July 1st. Then we have July 8th, Digital Footprint, what it is, what it isn't, and how do you use your digital footprint to unlock a whole bunch of potential for your career. So definitely come and learn about that. Then we have NFTS in education. So Rochelle is kind of my resident AI guru. So she's going to come back and tell us what is NFTs, how are we using this in education. So come and learn about that in September. Then we have the Smart Way to Write IEP Goals and Objectives, September 16th, with Dr. Marlene. So she is kind of my resident I have 2 resident SPED people that come and do all types of really awesome website webinars for us. Then we have creating equity through the arts. So how do we actually approach that type of learning through arts in our classroom? So definitely come and learn about that in September. We're not even done, y'all. We're not even done. Creating your success with your community. So you're doing all these awesome stuff at school, and then all we hear about is the negative, right? So how do you actually get that word out? How do you promote all of the wonderful things that you're doing? So practical tips and tricks. And then we have strengthening your math engagement with Desmos. So if you are a math educator, or if you just want to learn about what Desmos is, this is your session. And then we have learning in the metaverse. So again, one of those words we keep hearing around AI, like what is the metaverse? How do we use it? Come and find out. Then we have voice, value, and validation, a paradigm shift. So how do we amplify student voice in the classroom? How do we make sure our students are feeling validated and valued and all of that good stuff? You know, we have to kind of deal with that stuff before we deal with curriculum, right? So learning how to do that. Oh, and we have one more that we don't even have on the list yet. So y'all, it's so many good webinars. Again, you can get a certificate for each one that you come to, just all kinds of good, mostly free stuff. So we always have our self-paced courses for Google, level 1, level 2 certifications, SLLA Test Prep. All that stuff is always just sitting there waiting on you if you ever want to do it. And then, of course, you can tell me what you want to learn or tell me what you want to teach. This says 2023, but we're kind of full for 2023 now because we have one more to add in December that's already being scheduled. So what do you want to know in 2024? You can fill out the same form, but what do you want to know or what do you want to teach in 2024? Ooh, that was a lot of announcements, but now we're going to get to what you came here for, which is the SLLA test, the logistics, and the mindset behind it. Welcome to SLLA 6990 test prep. So today we're only going through the logistics and the mindset for the test. So it's the first part of a longer class that I usually teach on the entire SLLA test prep. But this is only that first part, the logistic and mindset. The second part is all about multiple choice. The third part is all about constructed response. So let's hop in and get started. So I am Dr. Desiree Alexander. Hello. I'm the founder, CEO of Educator Alexander Consulting, and that just brings me around the globe, teaching, helping, serving educators, and it's what I absolutely love to do. I'm also the Deputy Director of APEL, the Associated Professional Educators of Louisiana. And we are the alternative to the union in the state of Louisiana. So we do a lot to, again, service and help educators. So that's me. If you kind of scroll down, I take the SLLA exam about every 3 years just to sharpen my skills, make sure that I'm still relevant for what's on the test. We don't really talk about like test questions because that's not legal to do, right? But knowing what makes a good leader, knowing the content that's on the test, knowing what to study is everything. So for this new test, I've been doing this since the old test, which is 6011, and we'll kind of talk about that in a second. But on the new test, I did a cold, like just going and taking it, not even knowing kind of how they changed the test. I just wanted to just take it and get it over with. I made a 181 the first time, and then the second time, I wanted to take it from home because it was during COVID and I wanted to get that experience. Like I can't tell you about it if I don't have the experience myself, right? At least that's how I feel about stuff. So I wanted to take the test and get that at-home testing experience. And I made a 188 on that one. And your possible score range is 100 to 200. All right. So you do have some resources. It's the link. If you are here live, it's the link that is in the chat. If you are watching the YouTube video, it's the link that's in the description. So you don't really need this slide is what I'm saying, but you do have resources. I have a bunch of free resources on my website. If I ever see something that's really awesome, if I see something and I think is worthy of you studying it, I'm going to throw it in those resources. I'm not going to take credit for it because it's not mine, but I'm going to throw it in those resources of like, hey, you have a bunch of resources here. So you have a bunch of free resources from 6011 and 6990, which is the test that we're taking currently. But we also have, you know, a link to the book and a link to the online class and things that you would pay for if you wanted those as well. And with the online class, we have the full class, but we also have we have different classes. You can see all that, but there you go. So a whole bunch of resources, also like links. Where do you go to get ETS free resources? Where do you go to register? Where do you go? Because sometimes that can get a little confusing. I will say the ETS website has been updated, maybe like a year or two ago, but it's really nice. It's a really nice website now. So it's not as confusing as it used to be. I will point out the SLLA Study Companion 6990. I do suggest looking at that. But the mistake that a lot of people make is they go to the Study Companion and they only take the practice test. So I'm going to warn you against that. And I'm going to give you a couple of tips, right? So when you're looking at the SLLA Study Companion, the front of that like little booklet is very dense and kind of boring, but that's where the meat and potatoes are. Okay. So the front of the book goes through the standards. You want to look at that. Now, I'm not saying study it until your eyes fall out, but you want to read over it because that's the mindset that we need to get into to pass this test. Every single question, every single topic comes from the standards, everything. So there's not going to be like that outlier question that doesn't talk about. Everything comes from the standards. So you want to eat and read those standards. So in the front of the book, it breaks down every standard with like little bullets and stuff and says like, you know, under this standard, these are the things we want you to kind of focus on. Why would you not read that? Why would you not study that? Well, because it looks boring, right? I can't answer that question. But you need to look at that. Okay, you want that to be part of your study plan. Then when you do take the practice test, which is awesome, I always suggest ETS resources. I mean, they make the test, use their resources. When you're looking through, when you take the practice test, another common mistake that people make is they focus too much on how many they got right and wrong, and they focus too much on the questions themselves. What do you mean by that? So focusing on the questions themselves, you're not going to see those same questions come back. And I don't know why I keep hearing an echo, y'all. I'm so sorry if you're hearing an echo. I don't know why. Nothing is unmuted. So it's something in here. I swear I keep hearing an echo. Okay. If you're not, I apologize. So focusing on the questions. So you're not going to see those exact questions again, but what you will see is the mindset behind the questions. So any study materials that you're going to be looking at, what I want you to do is focus on the reasoning behind the answer. So instead of focusing on the question and the answer, look at the back of the book or the back of the pamphlet or whatever you're using for study questions. And you know how to kind of explain it, like, this is why this is the answer. And we're like, we just usually say like it was C and we get mad and we don't read the rest, right? Focus on that, because that reasoning behind the question is what's going to come back. That reasoning is what's going to follow you to other questions. So that's what you want to focus on versus the questions themselves. The other thing is, I missed 30. I missed 20. I only missed 10. Yay. It's a practice test. Okay, so what I tell my people, and people are never comforted by what I'm about to say, but what I tell my people is it doesn't matter if you miss every single question. I don't care. What I care about is, do you understand why you missed the question? If you can say, yeah, well, I missed the question because this is how they wanted me to think about it. That's it. We're learning. That's the whole point. So if you are focused on the wrong thing, quite frankly, it's going to mess you up. Okay, it's going to mess. So I don't want you to focus on, because I've had people contact me and they're like, I missed 50. That means I'm going to fail this test. I'm a horrible lead. No, it doesn't. Okay, it means you're practicing and you missed 50. Do you understand why you missed those 50? So if you're like, I missed 50 and I don't understand why, that's when we have a problem, because that's when you need to get some outside person. You need to get some help. Right? You need somebody to break down for you, why did you miss those actual questions? Remember, any questions, throw them in the chat. I keep checking my chat over here. Throw them in the chat if you have any questions. So where to get materials, we already talked about that. The main ETS website is on those materials, so you're fine to get there. But the most updated information is always on the ETS site. So always check the ETS site. Even the stuff that I tell you, even though I check the ETS site pretty regularly, still always verify. I don't care who's giving you information, verify it on the ETS website, okay? Because things change. So you have access to this slideshow on the resources. So if you're looking at all these links going, how am I going to click on all these links? It's on the resources. So if you go to the resources and you go to the pre-resources and you go to 6990 only, this slideshow is like the first thing on there. It's like number one, Alexander, PowerPoint, blah, 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 blah. So you have access to this. I do suggest, just because of time, if we have time, maybe we'll go, but we're not going to go through all this right now. But I do suggest clicking on these two links at the top, test day procedures and your computer test. Test day procedures will go through the procedures of when you go to the test center. Now, I'm going to talk about it a little bit right now. I'm just not going to show the video. So when you go to the test center, you and I know some of you may have already tried to take the test, so you may already know this stuff, and you can put an amen in the chat if you want to, like, let people know about your experience. But if you go to the test center, just a couple of things I want you to be aware of. So number one, they will kind of check you like you're going to the airport. So they're going to wand you. They may tell you to take off your glasses. They may tell you to lift up your pant leg. So they're going to kind of check you. And sometimes that throws people completely off, especially if you have test anxiety, which is a whole nother conversation. Okay. But the more prepared you can be, the better it's going to be, right? So you want to dress comfortably, like you're not trying to impress, and you're not going for a job, you're going to take the test. So dress comfortably. I like to tell people to wear long sleeves that are easy to roll up, so if you get hot or cold, sometimes it's good to bring like a jacket or a sweater. Depending on your test facility, sometimes they're very, very stringent on bringing outside clothing that's not on your body. So I know one test center I went to, I brought my sweater and they wouldn't let me bring my sweater in. I had to like hang it up outside. And then whenever I needed my sweater, I had to waste test time to raise my hand, have them come get me, go get my sweater. They checked me again. Even I didn't even leave their eyesight. They still checked me again. Then I went back in with my sweater on. And then other testing centers I've gone to, they're like, we really don't care. So it just depends. But you want to be as proactive as possible to make yourself as comfortable as possible. Even like taking off jewelry, like some of us take stuff off while then just leave it all in the car. Okay, they do give you a little locker that you can lock things up, like your phone and stuff like that. But you can't look at that stuff anytime throughout the test. I've had someone got their test canceled because she went to her locker during her break and looked at her phone. And I was like, yeah, you can't do that. And she got a letter and said, the test center reported, and her, her money was just gone. And all her work that she put in the test was gone. So those things, like, just leave them in the car or, put them in your life and just forget about them until the end of the test. You don't want it to be seen as you cheating or anything like that. You do get paper and pencils when you go in to take the test. So that's good to jot yourself little notes. You can't take it with you. You have to turn it back into them. But it is good to kind of jot down little notes for yourself. So you have it, use it, right? Last thing for the testing center is you want to advocate for yourself. So I know one time I took the test and I, except for the very first time I took it, I'm relaxing. I'll go take the test because, I'm just taking it to kind of refresh myself. But one time they sat me right by the door. So literally I can hear everyone coming to check in. And I was like, I would be so mad if I was taking this test for the first time. I would have to tell them I'm not sitting here. They do give you noise canceling headphones or earbuds, but still I could hear literally everything going on. So advocate for yourself. If something like that happens, you can definitely tell them, like, can I please go sit somewhere else? Because I can hear everything going on. If they have an open seat, they shouldn't have a problem with that. So just that kind of stuff. Your computer test just shows you the test screen. ETS actually got rid of this video, and I don't know why, because it's such a good video. But I have access to it. So it just shows you your test screen and how to maneuver your test screen. So I watched this before the first time I took it, and I was very happy that I did, because I kind of knew what was going to happen. So unless they are going to update it one day, I haven't seen the test screen update, but you know, that kind of shows you what to experience with your test screen. You can mark questions as you go to review them later. So I always say, go ahead and give it an answer. So like, I'm just going to give it C, and then I can mark it for later to go back to it if I have time, if I don't run out of time. And then the online practice test that ETS gives is $19.95. I get nothing from it, but I really think it's a really good test. Some of the test materials out there are, you know, you can always ask me, I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty good, you know, I mean, it takes nothing off me if it's different folks for different strokes, right? Different strokes for different folks. But I really stand behind the online practice as the ETS gives. I think it's a really good indicator of kind of flowing through that test. The only drawback, I think you can only access it like 10 times or something like that. And it doesn't give you any help for the constructed response. Now, the questions are for the constructed response, but it doesn't give you any kind of, well, maybe you should have wrote that. Like, it gives you nothing for the constructed response. So it's a good experience, but if you're looking for like feedback and stuff like that, no. But there you go. Any questions so far? I'm not seeing any. Throw them in the chat. So the test is $425. This is not a test that we want to take multiple times. I mean, just because who wants to take a test multiple times, but also because of the cost. I do not know why this test is so expensive. People have asked me that question. I'm like, I cannot even answer that question. I don't know. But it's expensive. So I'm guessing part of it is you have to hire people to grade the constructed response. But so $425, you must register at least 3 full days before you want to test. And that sounds so weird. Like, people like, of course I'm gonna register, but I've had people call me and say like, I'm ready, I'm gonna take the test today. I'm like, you're not, but I'm glad you're ready, because you have to register at least 3 days before you actually want to test. So just keep that in mind. In some places, especially if you want to go to testing centers, some places actually run out of spots on certain days. So, you know, whenever you're like, hey, I'm going to test in 3 months, go ahead and book it if you have the money to. Because if you're like, I have to test on this day because I have a wedding, and you know, first of all, don't put yourself in those situations, because then you're going to be just stressed out for the test. The test is stressful enough. Don't schedule it right around other stressful events. But you know, just give yourself that time, because you may not have that certain day. That certain day may be sold out. If you're going to be testing at home, some people find that more comforting, but some people actually find that more nerve-wracking, because you have to have like nothing, not pictures and stuff, but no like information. You're gonna have to pick up your laptop and like literally like tour them around your room. And sometimes they can get a little power hunt. They're like, show me the corner again. I'm like, what did you think? You literally just thought of it. So it's a little nerve-wracking sometimes. And with that, you can have like overhead projector film, or you can have the these things. And you can put like a white, I can't have words on it like mine does. You can put a white sheet of paper, and then this would be your paper and pencils. You can have like dry erase markers, and that you can erase, because they're going to tell you to erase it all before you're done with the test. So that's like turning it in. So just keep that in mind. Your scores will come out 2 to 3 weeks after. The good thing about ETS now is they actually tell you the exact date your scores are going to come out. I'm like, y'all are so lucky. We used to have to like keep checking, and oh my gosh. But now on the ETS website, you can even look up like ETS SLLA test score release, or you can Google. I think it's on my resource site too. There's the button for it. But you can click that, say I took the test on this date, and it'll tell you exactly the day that your test scores are going to be released, which is really nice. Usually your test scores are released before you actually get the email to say they're released. So just kind of keep that. You can kind of keep checking the website, or you can just wait to get the email. So this is the test dates with score release and the test requirements per state. So again, these are links that you can click on when you go get that resource. But all states are 151. So they kind of even that out. Because it used to be like this state is 170, this state is so it helps us, the people that kind of teach this. So 151 for everybody except for Virginia and South Dakota, which require 146. So I tell my people, like, that is your number. Put it on the wall, because I don't care if you make a 151, you passed. That's all that matters. So, you know, like I tell people, I dare you ask me my score, right? I passed. That's all you need to know. So the 151 is what we're trying to get to for most of us, unless you're in Virginia or South Dakota, 146. So we know that it's 425 for the test, but different situations pop up, and it's one of those things that you think like, well, it's never going to happen to me. I'm never going to need this stuff. Y'all, I deal with so many people across the U.S., you know, we're helping with them with this test and that kind of thing, and all kinds of stuff pops up. So if you need to change the test date, or the center change, like you can't take it here, but you can take it in another state, you know, whatever, all the different situations, is a $40 fee. So you'll pay that $40 so you can change your test date or your center. The other big one is the score review. Do not even do a score review. And this is just Desiree, but other people have said, but don't even do a score review unless you're 1 point away. So if you make a 150 and you're like, you can go ahead and pay the $65 for the score review. What they'll do is they'll look at your constructed response. There is no looking back at multiple choice. Either you got it right or you got it wrong. So they'll look back at your constructed response and see, like, you know, can we add a point, like, you know, can that point be made up, pretty much. And I'll talk about grading in a second, but can that point be made up? So if you make less than a 150, you're kind of wasting your money. Your score is not going to be raised that many points. But 1 point, I've seen people be successful with it. So you can test it out and see. You may not have to pay that $425 again. But I've also seen people go for it and it didn't work. That were 1 point away. So it's just, you know, you're kind of just throwing that $65 up in the air and seeing what happens. Test retake policy. So I talked a little bit earlier about someone that had their test voided. So the test retake policy is if you take the test and don't give it, like I always say, just a 30-day window. It's 28 days, but the 30-day window. So you have to wait 30 days, 28 days to retake the test. And the thing is, no one is going to stop you from retaking the test. So if you go and you click and either you say that you don't want your scores or whatever all the possibilities may be, and then you go and you schedule that test to be taken again within that 28 days, nobody's going to stop you. Nobody's going to stop you from paying the money. Nobody's going to stop you from registering. Nobody's going to stop you from taking the test. What's going to happen is, instead of getting the results, you're going to get a letter in the mail, or maybe email now, but you're going to get a letter in the mail that says you violated the test retake policy. You are not getting your scores. So if you just like to donate money to ETS, you can violate the test retake policy. Would those days include weekends? To bring a yes, I think it just includes all calendar dates as far as I understand it. But this is what I would say to you. If it's that picky where you're like 2 to 3 days, then just skip another week. Just skip another week and go take your test. So you just don't want to, as far as I understand it does, because you can test on the weekend. So as far as I understand it, it does cover calendar days. But again, I wouldn't even play with doing it that, like, just wait another week and go take it. Any questions, y'all? Put them in the chat. How is my test scores? I get this question so much. And I have had people that will break it down and go, well, Desiree is 22% of this, so it has to be 5% of that. I'm like, do your thing, baby. Like, I'm not going to stop anybody from doing whatever makes them feel better to be more successful on this test. I'm never going to stop you from that. The official word from the people that do the test, that created the test, is there is no way that you can tell how many you have to get right to pass the test. So this is there because I was just so over it, the question, not over my people, but just over the question. I was like, I don't know. So I was like, let me just ask ETS straight up. And I told them, hey, I prepare people for this test. And can you give us an official answer? So this is what they emailed back to me. And this is a picture, so you can't click on that link. That link is probably old anyway. But because there's different versions of the test, some versions of the test are harder than other versions of the test, so they're graded a little bit differently. There is no way to tell. So that's pretty much what this says, but I like to give people the official, like this is what ETS has said. So I usually tell my people, just take the test. They take the test. You're worrying about the wrong thing. Okay, so take the test. But you can see like the second to last sentence, because of this method of scoring, it is impossible to determine how many correct answers you need to obtain a certain score. So there you go. All right, so continuing with the logistics, and then we're going to start talking about mindset. So about the test, you have two sections on the test, section 1 and section 2. Section 1 is my mind just went blank, multiple choice. Section 2 is constructed response. And yes, you have to take them in that order. You can't do like constructed response as soon as I sit down. You have to do multiple choice first, then constructed response. On your section 1, which is multiple choice, you have 2 hours and 45 minutes. Section 2, an hour and 15. You cannot borrow time. So you can't say, well, I only spent 2 hours on multiple choice, so can I take that 45 minutes and use it? No. Okay, you just lose that time. So if you're done with multiple choice in 2 hours and you click I'm done, it's going to give you that 10-minute break between sessions. And you can say, I don't want the break, or you can say, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and take the break. And then that 45 minutes is just gone. And then when you come back to take a structured response, you have an hour and 15 minutes. So those times are stuck. You have 120 multiple choice questions and 4 constructed response questions to get through in those times. So that kind of breaks down into 1.4 minutes for each multiple choice question and 18 minutes for each constructed response question. And that's of course to read it, digest it, and write out your answer. The test that you're taking is 6990. So you want to make sure that when you're registering, you're registering for the correct test. The complete test time for section 1 and section 2 is 4 hours. But of course, if you get done with a certain section first, you don't have to take the whole 4 hours, but please give yourself the whole 4 hours. Because again, I've seen people try to fit this in because I'm gonna go do this after the test, and then they take the whole and then they're freaking out. Just don't put yourself in you're doing that to yourself at that point. You're putting yourself in that situation. So give yourself a leisurely 4 hours, to take the test. If you want to take every minute, take it. When you register for the test, if you're part of an organization or you're part of a certification program, you're part of a college, maybe your job, maybe the state, whatever, when you register, it's going to ask you, like, who do you want to officially send these scores to? Go ahead and put those organizations on there to officially send the scores to whoever. And then you see the little breakdown. This comes directly from the SLLA ETS book. The breakdown of your standards, which we're about to talk about, your standards and like what percentage of each standard is on the test. Again, my mindset, that doesn't help me out, like just take the test. But for some people, it does help them. So again, I'm never going to not give you information that may help you and how your brain works. So if this helps you, it's here. They have the information there. So on the test, you have multiple choice, and then you have some kind of like drag and drop, and then you have constructed response. So this is how some of your constructed response screens will look if you have different documents. So you see at the very top of the left side, you see case study, document 1, document 2, document 3. That is where you would click to get the test scores or the parent letter or the whatever. And then the scenario will be here. And then the question will be at the top. And then you have this little window at the bottom to type. And you see that you only have cut, paste, undo, redo, because people have asked me when we talk about like constructive response, how you can do a bulleted list, and that's all for constructive response. But, when we talk about the tips and tricks for constructive response, they'll say, oh, well, will they have like a little button that I can do a book? No. Will they have a thing with 1, 2, 3, 4? No. Okay, you're going to do that yourself. So I like to, again, point this kind of stuff out. The more you know ahead of time, the better you can be prepared for the test. Then you have this kind of window. So this is if you don't have documents. Honestly, if you don't have documents, you probably have maybe one question. You're not going to have many questions that don't have documents. But if you don't, then the scenario and the question will be at the top, and then you type at the bottom. And then this is an example of one of those like drag and drop type questions where you're putting something in an order, like what are the order of the steps, how you would solve this problem, that kind of thing. The example that they have in the test prep book is this one. And honestly, now this is not the ETS practices, it's just like the test prep book that they give everybody for free. This is one of the hardest doggone questions. So when I do go through this, usually when we talk about multiple choice, a lot of people will get it wrong. It's a really difficult, it doesn't look like a difficult question, but it's a really difficult question. It's one of the hardest questions. I like this one because it's like, and I also got it wrong when I first did this practice test. But this is just an example. So this is about SMART goals. And then it'll say like, which one of these is specific, which one of these is measurable, which one of these is timely, like the T is always different words, but it's always around time. And then which one of these is realistic and attainable. And you would, drag and drop those in there to say which one is which. So just an example of that, because again, this is just logistics and mindset. So the example of that type of question. Okay. So standards. So I said I was going to talk about the grading of the test. Usually I talk about that when we get to multiple choice, but it is part of logistics. So how your constructed response is graded. So multiple choice is graded is by a computer, is multiple choice, right? If you only have multiple choice, they can tell you if you passed when you were there, but you also have constructed response. So how the constructed response is graded is they will send your constructed response answers to 2 different people. Now, this is the thing. And again, I don't usually talk about this in logistics. I talk about it when we get to constructed response, but I'm going to go ahead and move this to logistics because it's important for you to know. So no one gets your whole test. So no one's going to get, to bring us. Oh, that's telling me it's time to turn on the evaluation. So I'll do that in a minute. So no one's going to get your whole 1 through 4. So what that means is don't reference other answers that you've done because no one knows what you're talking about. And you can repeat yourself in your answers. So again, I'm going to just kind of cut that off right there, but just know that. So your number 1 is going to be mixed in with a whole bunch of other people's number 1s, and that's going to go to 2 different people. So if this person gives you a 2 and this person gives you a 2, you have a 2. If this person gives you a 3 and this person gives you a 2, it's going to go to a 3rd person that's going to break the tie. So that's how that's graded. Okay, just because I said I was going to talk about grading a little bit. So like I said, everything goes through the standards. So you got to know these standards, y'all. I went ahead and put in red kind of your like big words for each standard, but you have to eat, breathe, and live these standards. So I'm not going to go deep into the standards right now because that's not what this is about. I do have a free class on the resources that breaks down the standards. So it breaks down each standard and it puts it into realistic terms. So how would standard 1 really look at a real school? So that's for free. It's all on the resource page. Okay. But standard 1 is all about shared vision, mission, and core values. So notice the word shared. You don't do anything by yourself on this test. A good leader does not work alone. A good leader does not make decisions alone. So you're going to be seeing shared, like it should be you creating with a group the mission, vision, and core values. Number 2 is all about ethics. So I will tell you right now, the way to teach ethics to your adult leaders on campus is to model ethics. If you're not doing it, okay, so the way to teach ethics is to model ethics. Standard 3 is all about equity and cultural responsiveness. So it's all about making sure that everyone is being treated fairly, that everyone is getting what they actually need to be successful. That's what equity is versus, I hate to say versus equality. Equality, everybody gets the same thing. Equity, everybody gets what they need to be successful. And cultural responsiveness at the basic level, and all of this is on the test. Cultural responsiveness at the basic level is making sure that you are connecting what you're teaching to your students' lives. That it, like, answering that question, why am I learning this, before they ask it, right? We should never hear that question in 23, like, why am I learning it? We should be answering that as we're teaching. Why is this relevant to our students? Standard 4 is all about curriculum. Okay, so that's your rigorous and coherent. And rigorous means something different in education. Like, it's not, we think rigorous difficult, right? But when we talk about education, rigorous means connected to standards. So rigorous and coherent systems of curriculum instruction and assessment. Standard 5 is all about your stakeholders. It's all about your community, is creating that supportive school community. Because some of these start kind of running into each other and you start going, well, I thought that was standard. And on the test, no one's going to ask you what standard you're looking at. So nobody cares that that's standard 5. Like, that's not, thank goodness, that's not what they're concerned. So you never have to be like, it's 5, it's 5. No, do you know what the standard is saying? Do you understand what the standard is trying to get you to understand as a good leader? Nobody cares that you know that it's standard 5. Okay. So that's inclusive, caring, and supportive school community. And notice it's dealing with students, right? The care and support of students. Then we have standard 6, which is about school personnel, right? And then the next one, teachers and staff. So it kind of starts running like, but I thought we would know, but they're focusing on different things. So, or different people, I should say. So standard 5 is the focus on students. Standard 6, building that professional capacity and practice for your school personnel. And then standard 7 is kind of doing the same thing for your professional staff. So are you building people up, right? Are you providing those opportunities for them to grow as students, school personnel, or teachers and staff? And then standard, and we do have 10 standards. Sorry, I should have said that in the beginning. 10 standards. Standard 8 is going back to your stakeholders with your families and communities. So we went from students to personnel to faculty and staff to teachers and staff to families and communities, because we can't leave them out, right? So now you're dealing with these stakeholders of engaging your families and communities. Then we've dealt with all the people. So now we're switching with standard 9 and going to operations and management. This is the standard I used to call, on the old standards, I used to call it the silent standard, because it's one of those standards where, especially us coming up and we're doing a whole bunch of like leadership stuff, a lot of us never deal with standard 9. Like, we deal with a lot of different stuff, but we don't deal with the actual operations of the school and the resources and the management of just the school itself. Because it's a beast. So definitely, if you're like, oh, that's one you may want to look into. And then standard 10 is that continuous improvement. So what are you doing for yourself? What are you doing for your school? What are you doing for your staff and your students to continuously improve? No one can be stuck. This should be a very fluent campus. So those are your 2015 PSEL standards. If you see anything that says ISLC, ISLLC, ISLC were the old standards that the old test was built on. It's not, if you see ISLC or you see the old test, you can still look at those materials. Just know that we had 6 ISLC standards, we have 10 PSEL. So just know that, like, I can still use that to study, but that's not like my head is different now. We're on PSEL. So it's not like you need to like burn all of that, but I wouldn't spend the bulk of my time studying that. I can still look at it. It still is, you know, the same standards here are there, but we have more. We have more standards, and the test is definitely a different mindset for the test. So let's talk about mindset. Not, I mean, all the standards was about mindset too, but final thing about mindset before we get to questions and the book giveaway. There's a couple of different mindsets that you want to take on this test to be successful. The first one, and usually when I'm doing this class as a like a real class, I would ask you, like, what do you think this picture means? Again, but since this is just a very quick logistics webinar, I'm going to just get to the point. So you have to have a perfect world mindset. If you're already an administrator, sometimes that can hurt you on this test. If you are, anytime you start a sentence with, well, at my school, you're already messing up on this test. Nobody cares about your school. Nobody cares about your state. Nobody cares about your district. Remember, this is a test that's in half of the United States, so they can't make it specific to what you're going through. So you need to think, if I was in a perfect world where money isn't a big issue, where discipline is not a big, notice I'm not saying it's not an issue, but not a huge issue. Time is not a huge issue. How would I answer this question? That is what, this is 60% of the test is getting in the right headspace. So you have to get in that perfect world mentality. So again, once you start saying, well, at my school, that's exactly what we did. Nobody cares. If you had the perfect situation to handle this problem, how would you handle it? And I almost hate saying perfect world because it sounds so Pollyanna, but I mean, if we want to be in the perfect world, like, you know, we want to not have these huge situations where we can't do the right thing. So you want to think about it in that way sometimes, because sometimes thinking perfect world, like, oh, that's just not where I am. Well, no, if you could be in that scenario where we don't have all this extra drama in education, how would you answer this question? Right? Where students are not coming hungry to school, where, you know, all these extra things that we deal with don't exist. If your teacher is teaching your students and your students failed the test, it's because the teacher didn't teach with the curriculum. Period. You can't come, oh, my teacher's, you know, husband died, and then the students, like 3 of them were in that car crash. Stop it. That's not this test. Okay, it's black and white on this test. If the students didn't pass the test, the teacher didn't teach the curriculum, because the curriculum was the test. Done. So you got to get in that headspace. The second headspace is an administrator headspace. And I've had people tell me, like, oh, well, you know, I know what my administrator. Stop it. It's a different mindset. Okay. Whereas a teacher, you can go in, close your door, and say, I'm going to do what's best for these students. As an administrator, you have to think about how this one decision is going to affect everybody. Okay. Without the B, everybody. Okay. How is it going to affect the parents, the community, the teachers, the students, the board? If I'm going to give the student a pencil, okay, you know, as a teacher, I'm just going to give the baby a pencil, let's go. But if I give the student a pencil as an administrator, am I giving everybody a pencil? Does the mom want them to have a pencil? Is it the right brand of pencil that the board approved? Is it? Okay, so you've got to get in that administrator mindset. It's not just, I'm going to do everything for this once. You got to get in that administrator mindset. It's a broader mindset to pass this test. Okay, so that's the 2 mindsets, besides getting very friendly with these standards. That's the mindset that I need you to get into to pass this test. So what I'm going to do right now is I am going to see if we have any questions. I don't see any in the chat, but I'm going to make it to where you can unmute yourself. Do we have any questions? While I am getting those questions, I'm also going to have you entered to win for the book contest. So if you want a free copy of Ready to Be an Educational Leader, your guide for passing the SLLA 6990, it is available on Amazon. All right, everyone. So that is it. Congratulations to Sabrina for winning the book. If you have any other questions, you know how to contact me. You have that resource. That's a really, 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 really good resource. If you are here live, you can go ahead and fill out the evaluation, and the evaluation will get you your certificate. If we have any questions about anything, I will hang out a little bit after to make sure everybody has what they need. But thank you so much for attending this webinar. Remember, we have one extra webinar later today, and y'all have a good rest of your day.